They want me to print material and ship it over to them before I get there. Have you ever had experience doing that?
Print material and ship it over?
Yeah, they want me to print things and ship it over. I told them I could do it, but I almost feel
it's usually more expensive to try and do that. And
Hi.
a little risky getting it there.
Are they hacking a second bag and just paying for a second check bag?
No, I mean,
No,
they want me to ship it before I get there for like April's. I mean, May. Like trainings they're having before I get there. Because I'm bringing everything like that I'm making for them, but they want to have additional things printed out. And I was just like,
You should be able to do that.
Yeah, I would think they should be able to. It'd be better for them to print it there.
that's what I was thinking, but I didn't want to. I told them yes, of course, but I was thinking in my head, I'm like, it'll probably take months, at least a couple weeks to ship there. Like,
It's expensive. I don't know, there's a building capacity.
And paper is also really expensive because it's heavy, so it's not less like shipping light things over.
It's gonna make a ton of sense. It's gonna be really exorbitantly expensive.
Yeah, they're like, we can refund the shipping cost, and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I would just tell them.
just tell them that it's going to be really
More
expensive
than
and they'd be
local.
better off to print it there.
How many, like, is it booklets that they want you to print? They haven't sent it to me. They're like, if I send it to you by email. So, of course I can copy it for you. No problem. I think it'll be very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm definitely bringing a lot of stuff with me. There are 60 copies of all training material.
Oh, man.
I might get like a crappy suitcase that I can like leave there so I don't feel distraught that I don't bring back.
Yeah, or something that folds up, you can stick in your suitcase.
Because I was originally just going to carry my backpack, and I'm like, this isn't happening anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a lot.
Uh-oh, what happened? Why does it say post attendee?
I think Zoom's on the bottom.
Okay, you're right. Thank you.
Yeah. So we have a couple more students from Davis who come. So they might be just walking a little late, but maybe we can go ahead and get started.
You guys want to, do you have things to talk about before we get started?
I'll just introduce you. Do we have any other?
Does everybody usually not use their video or they just have it off because?
Mine's not working right now, but most people use it.
Turn it off and eating and it looks gross.
Because we don't have too many people on here.
Yeah.
Sometimes
people tell me about
Hi, everyone. This is Asha. Sorry, my video is not working right now, but I promise it's me. So today we have Dr. Elizabeth Mitcham in today to talk to you about developing extension materials and branding. And we're really fortunate because she's the director of the Horticulture Innovation Lab and is also a post-harvest physiologist and previously served as the director of the UC Post-Harvest Technology Center and helped train industry, academics, and students from more than 40 countries as part of that program's activity. She currently serves as the Vice President-elect for the International Division of the American Society for Horticultural Sciences and was previously honored as the ASHS Outstanding International Horticulturalist. Mitcham joined the UC Davis faculty in 1992 as a UC Cooperative Extension Specialist and holds degrees in horticulture from the University of Maryland, a PhD in Bachelor of Science, and North Carolina State University, which is an MS. All right, and I'll let you take it away.
Okay. Monitor students, you might have to turn your volume on, and we'll make sure both of our volumes are on.
Okay. I think it's on. Oh, yes. There we go. Okay, well, thank you very much, Asha, for that introduction. Yeah, it's exciting to have a chance to talk to the Trellis group. It's the first time I've had a chance to do that. I'm very excited to see so many students in Trellis this quarter. It's a nice big group, and I look forward to getting to know some of you over the next hour and a half that we're going to have to talk. I'm actually in the Department of Plant Sciences. I am a cooperative extension specialist, so I work a lot with the industry here in California on extension activities, and the Postharvest Technology Center does a lot of short courses and workshops for the industry. So I know a little bit about extensions, probably enough to be dangerous. Anyway, so I'm gonna since all of you, well, we'll do some brief introductions a little bit later in just a minute or two, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let's see.
If you share your desktop, it'll share anything you pull up.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, just say share. Okay. That's actually, I like that. Very good. All right, can everyone see the guidelines for, can you see that?
Yeah,
that's what they see. So this is, can we make this smaller?
Yeah, there's a little,
There we go. Okay. So these are some guidelines for branding that I just wanted to start off with. So the Horticulture Innovation Lab really encourages all its projects, including Trellis, to appropriately brand the program. It's important so that the Horticulture Innovation Lab gets credit for the great work that Trellis is doing, so that we can keep getting funding and continue doing Trellis. We're hoping Trellis will live on to our program for many years. So we have this logo block that we've developed, and the logo block of UC Davis is everything here, with the exception of the University of Florida part. That's not part of our logo block, but the USAID, the Horticulture Innovation Lab, and UC Davis part, it all comes together in a logo block. And you can get it off our website. You can see the link there. It's a little bit awkward because it's long and skinny, and so when you're making materials, it's a little bit challenging to use, but I think you just have to think of it as more of a linear thing. And then, so for those students who are from other institutions, like the University of Florida as an example, then you would add your logo on the right-hand side, like you see in this picture here. And then then you would want to add logos for the organization that you're working with, and if there are more than one, you can add several. So you can see that after a while it does get to be pretty long. So generally it's usually something you want to put at the bottom of your document, or maybe your title slide on your PowerPoint or whatever you're using. But that's the way it's recommended to be used, is to add the extra organizations on the right-hand side. So for the students at UC Davis, of course, you don't need to add UC Davis because it's already there. So you can just go with the other organizations that you're working with.
I have a question. So one of the things I have to do is print sort of a large poster, and oftentimes we also see in presentations they have like one section on the side of the title. Is that acceptable, or does it have to literally be a block? Or if all the titles are on the poster somewhere, that's acceptable?
Yeah, so the question is, if you're doing a really large poster, does this have to go, regardless of what you're doing, does it have to go across the entire bottom? And no,
So just as long as it's on there somewhere.
Right, you don't want it to be so big that it, that it overpowers the information. It just needs to be on there somewhere.
No, I
Can you break up?
yeah, the break up.
Oh.
So it's like put the USA on one left-hand side,
Okay.
the USA right-hand side.
Okay, so the question is, can you break it up? We prefer you not break it up, that it actually all go together like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, unfortunately, a lot of times people tend to do that, but we prefer, if at all possible, that you get it all on there in this order. Okay, let's see. And then if you do use the logo block, and we want you to, then you have to add this disclaimer that's on here, that this brochure or this manual, whatever it is that you're producing, is made possible by the generous support of the American people through the United States Agency for International Development. And then it should go on to say that the contents are the responsibility of the Horticulture Innovation Lab's Trellis Fund. If you want, you can put the name of your project specifically. And then that the contents do not necessarily reflect the views of USAID or the US government. So that would be if you're including the logo block. So, yes.
So if we already developed, for example, like a manual, and then we're using it for the workshops, do we need to add that even though they already had, like previously had it?
If you haven't had any input into it, then I don't see any reason why we should be putting our logo on there.
Just if I have some input in what it's written.
Right. If you're creating the brochure, then we would want to try and put it on there. Now, I will say that we want to be flexible. So if the organization, there have been cases where having USAID on something can be counterproductive, where, it might affect how it's received by the beneficiaries. So if you get pushback in that regard, then I would say, we can be flexible about it. If they really feel like it's not a good idea to do that, then, just let the Trellis organizers know that, you've had this conversation and they're not comfortable with that. And then the last part on here is more important for, probably more for the students at other institutions than at UC Davis, but if someone's writing about your work, so they might want to do a press about your program at your university, or someone wants to write about you. Generally, if someone's writing about your work, then they want to include the statement that it was supported by the Horticulture Innovation Lab with funding from USAID, as it states there. So we like to get that statement in there. We're actually so that's where that would apply. So it's a little bit different statement. So any questions from those on the Zoom? Could you hear the questions that were being asked here?
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm trying to repeat them, but if you ever can't hear something, just feel free to interrupt us and ask me to repeat it.
I'm guessing we just asked our university if we should be using any logo.
You mean whether you should put University of Florida or North Carolina State?
Yeah, because I've been at a university where they said, no, don't use the logo without permission. That kind of thing.
Ah, okay. Well, yeah, whatever requirements your university has, I would, yeah, you could let them know what you're planning to do. Okay. All right. So I kind of put this PowerPoint together a little bit as an example. So I put my picture on here, and you can either think that's hokey or, and it's a little bit uncomfortable, I think, to do it, but I think it's really helpful for the audience, especially when they go back later, they can remember who it was they were talking to. So I wouldn't be shy about doing that. But we're going to talk today about developing extension materials. Now, you had a workshop, or you had a class 2 sessions ago on developing or giving workshops, right? So I wanted to actually start off by learning what you learned. So maybe each of you could tell me something that you learned about giving effective workshops.
One of the biggest things that I took away from it was timing. It's something I hadn't really thought about in terms of saying when your workshop's going to be might be not an attainable time for like mothers or for certain groups who have to work at that time. So I thought that was something I hadn't thought about before that was helpful.
I think for me was being conscious of sort of the social norms there that we may not be aware of here, sort of like the women and men might separate themselves from each other, or sort of those things that you don't really think about because here it's sort of just one guy doing all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I guess it was that it definitely has like a very structure, so you need to have like an icebreaker. And then like what are the expectations, the activities, surveys, yeah.
Establishing credibility and trust. At the sort of being open, but trust is as important as the material that's being delivered.
Did they give you some advice how to do that?
Sort of, icebreaker stuff. And I can't think of anything as far as establishing credibility. I think that's something that you sort of have to go with in the field a little bit. So, I mean, knowing what you're talking about, I guess. But,
I think like sharing your credentials, but then also they talked about making an effort to really try to meet the training participants when they first arrive. So kind of be there to be a greeter and start to establish that relationship versus like hanging out in the back of the room until it starts.
Mm-hmm.
I think also listening to them, like listen to their complaints and be aware of what they're looking for and not what you're trying to push on them.
How about you, Russell?
So I was going to go with training the trainer versus training farming and how to and what kind of training you need to have.
So,
and how to train them.
So gauging the audience, like, are they trainers or are they actually farmers?
Yeah, and kind of what activities you would include. Are you getting feedback from me? Is it echoing?
No.
It's only echoing from me.
Yeah, so I don't know if everyone could hear. It was a little bit quiet on our end. So he was talking about adjusting the activities depending on whether it's a training of trainers versus training of farmers.
Maybe if you can mute your sound, I can try to unmute mine to hear them. My laptop is really loud.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know why mine is not. Let's see. Okay.
Yeah, I'm told I normally talk loud, so.
Oh, I see. Okay. it's all right. Go ahead
Okay.
and ask.
She needs her mic.
Okay. So we're going double laptops here. All right. How about Krishna? What would you like to tell us about workshops?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So what I learned was the importance of learning the mode of delivery if the audience, if the farmers or the participants are able to understand English, or they would it would be easier and more effective if we can use the translator or some mode of local language that they are used to, and also to do some kind of research on the practices what they have already been doing and what topic we are required to provide our expertise on, so that we can so similar thing has already been told before, but so that we can also convince them that we have also learned what is being already practiced there. So we are there to offer a modified version or some improved version of what they have been already doing there.
Great. Thank you. All right. Prasanta. We can't hear you because I know you're unmuted.
Yeah, today I have some problem with hearing. Yeah, kind of destructive. Yeah, so I'm going to Ghana and give the training to farmers. And I already heard from my organization, the farmers know about English very well. So it kind of, flexible to talk with English. And I have a plan to give like a demonstration on setup drip irrigation system. And they already, maybe before I arrived over there, they already set up. So I can ask some questionnaire how they learn about the system, and I can participate with them and modify some version of how to set up drip irrigation system like that.
Okay, great. Well, so it sounds like there's maybe a tiny bit of overlap with some material I'll cover, but I think it never hurts to have a little bit of that. So I don't know how you want to do this.
Are you just gonna do your presentation?
Yeah.
At this point? Okay, cool, I can.
Am I muted?
Okay. And you can turn your sound back on too, Ellen, if you engage the students on Zoom again.
Okay. All right. When I what?
Click on the slide.
Oh, I know why it's not on. No, it is.
It's also the front forward and backward arrows in the corner.
All right, so now I just would like to take just a few minutes so I can get to know you guys a little bit better, for those who are on the call and in the room here, to have you just tell me who you are and briefly what your project's about, and then tell me the kinds of extension materials you think at this stage you're going to need to make for your project. So we'll have you pick up the audio. So should I mute?
Yes.
And we'll start with those in the room here, and then we'll move to those of you on Zoom.
I'm Annabelle. I'm going to be going to Uganda to do sort of a post-harvest 101 project, where I'm going to be developing materials on how to build a ZEC, how to build a cool bot, how to do the solar chimney dryer, and those are the things that the organization has requested from me.
I'm Carla. I'm in viticulture and enology here, and I'll be working in Uganda, and we'll be training women on crop tree propagation making fertilizers, making pesticides, and teaching them how to market the fruit. I think we will be developing a booklet and some maybe posters to have on the rooms.
So I don't know if you said the kind of materials, but what sort of format are you?
They're going to be on paper format, so they said very brief, but as much pictorial as possible since most of the people I'm working with are illiterate. But they'll also be sort of a larger manual for sort of the organization to have. And they're planning to share the material, and it's going to be kept in the organization for the community to use.
I'm Claire. You know me. I'm going to Uganda, and I will be doing a juicing project for post-harvest of mangoes and oranges. So I will be making probably booklets and manuals for the organization to describe the juicing process and what they need to do to the fruit to prepare them for juicing, as well as pasteurization and storage of the juice. So booklets, manuals, and probably some posters as well.
I'm Stuart Wilson. I'm a soil scientist, and I'm working in Nepal doing soil health training. And I created a brochure. I'm also doing on-farm demonstrations of soil health. And so there's going to be a lot of these little one-page descriptors of the different soil properties that will be going along with the on-farm training, or in-field training, posters. They want me to do a PowerPoint at the university, and then brochures and handouts.
Okay, so how about Russell?
Hi, Russell. I'm at University of Hawaii, and I am going to Tanzania with Horti Tengeru, and the project title was Improving Mulching Technology, but it's also going to be training on improved vegetable production. So we decided on a training manual and 2 PowerPoint displays or presentations for about 4-hour training sessions, and then doing flip charts for training sessions in the actual villages. So the PowerPoints are for farmer motivators, so that's kind of the training the trainers part. And then the other sessions are for farmers themselves. And then we've got demo plots with practical sessions.
Okay, how about Prasanta?
Yeah, I'm Prashanto Das from University of Florida. I'm going to Ghana, and my project on enhancing vegetable productivity through effective irrigation system. So I prepared a PowerPoint presentation based on current practices and the modified one. And I prepared 2 documentaries on drip irrigation system on USA and another one for Africa. That is the current practices. So my first session will be on presentation on nothing like visual, and the second half will be documentary. That they can distinguish the current practices and the improved one. And I have some interview after training session, so I can talk with farmers and take the feedback, how they learn about these things. Yeah, this is my current.
Great. All right, so have we gotten everyone? Is there any, Lauren. Are there a couple more who joined? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So Krishna, Kishitish, Raja, Nataraj.
Hello. Hi. I'm working on a kiwi agribusiness project in Nepal, and I've been asked to prepare some PowerPoint presentations and a training manual. Apart from that, I'm also doing flip chart and a farmer's activity, to encourage them to have a group cohesiveness, because my host organization, they want me to do encourage farmers to have a cooperative society. So that I'm focusing on building trust between the in the group farm members. So that's what I have planned. Thank you.
All right, thanks. How about Sidra?
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm a former visiting scholar at the University of Florida and I'm going to the Methodist University College, Ghana. So I am working with I will work at the Ghana for training evaluation of the mango. So I will develop some presentations as well as the training models for the practical demonstration of the whole process involved in the value addition of the mango. So first I will do the presentations, then I will do the practical demonstration of the which processes are involved for the development of different products from the mango, like juices, splash, yogurt, mango-based yogurt, such type of things. And at the end, I will do the workshop with the whole community, faculty as well as with the farmers. And I will do some interviews, like what they learn from the training.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is that everyone online or are there more?
I think I'm more.
Or Kishi Tishwan.
Yeah.
Ah,
Hello everyone.
Krishna.
Krishna.
You just muted your, there you go.
Oh, it's my turn now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to Rwanda for a project for good agriculture practices and vegetable crops in wetland, and the materials I will be developing will be mostly the PowerPoints, where I will have the different plant pest diseases, weeds or nematodes, information about those pests and the recommendations slides, and maybe some of the handouts, and we're considering of having some demonstration plots where we can have plots with where we'll be inoculating different diseases, and another will be like a disease-free plots or weeded plots or non-weeded plots to demonstrate how much yield can be reduced with this different kind of weeds and different kind of diseases. I'm also considering of making some of the small interviews, videos based on what specific questions, a specific problem growers over there are interested to know, which I'm still looking forward to hear that, like what is the information they are seeking mostly at this point from the survey, and we'll try to have other experts answering those questions also. We mostly PowerPoint, demonstration plots, and some of the videos I'm planning to make.
Are you going to make videos or use videos that have already been made?
I am planning to make the videos, but I just need to know which specific pest they want to know, information about it, and probably I would like to interview some of the grad student who works in the specific pathogen or nematode, or the faculties if they're interested too. So,
yeah. Okay, great.
Me and Krishna.
I think I'm the last one remaining. So my name is Krishna. I am based at University of Florida, and my host organization is going to be Eco Agri Uganda. And my projects that I'm responsible for are the irrigation, focusing on the drip irrigation, and post-harvest on tomatoes and mushroom cultivation. So the extension materials that I'm going to develop will be 2 PowerPoints, one on drip irrigation, primarily focusing on a comparative picture of what it is available, irrigation practices, what it is available there. and what it is currently being used in United States. The second one is going to be a PowerPoint presentation on post-harvest of tomatoes. And I'm planning to use the materials that has been developed by Trellis Innovation, the Hort Innovation program here, to include those in that PowerPoint. The second thing that I'm going to develop would be a poster. Actually, I'm planning about couple posters for each topic, but I don't know how much flexibility I'll have on that. So at least I'm planning to develop a poster on the irrigation practices. And also we have 3 experimental plot going on, right, that has been started for comparative normal irrigation, bucket irrigation, and also drip irrigation. So we'll be doing some demonstration on those experimental plots as well as collecting some data.
Great. So for mine, I'm doing a literature review on the nutritional benefits of sweet potato leaves. And so part of that is to translate the findings from the lit review into training materials, posters, flyers, and picture booklets for local development workers, and they can take that knowledge and bring it out to the community. And then also contributing to a recipe booklet for cooking recipes for the sweet potato leaves. Okay, very good.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So now let's see. There we go. Okay. All right. So we'll jump in then to a more thorough discussion of extension. So who can tell me what extension is? How would you define it?
Translating scientific knowledge to the general public or specific industries.
Okay, so
people who can use it.
Translating scientific knowledge to people who need it, non-scientists.
Getting feedback from farmers about what science is needed.
Okay, so yeah, getting feedback, that's true. That's the other part of extension. It's not always a one-way street. That's a really important point. Anybody else?
The same connecting academia with the industry.
I don't know if that's exclusively academia, just spreading knowledge that you have to somebody else, regardless of your research or just practical experience.
I would agree with that. I mean, hopefully it's credible knowledge, but doesn't have to be from academia necessarily. But yeah, so we're extending information. That's where the word comes from. So what do we hope to achieve by extending information? Like in your projects, what do you hope to achieve?
Well, at least a change of agricultural practices. Maybe clear up those misconceptions that they might have.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah.
I think being able to be the link between the resources that we have access to and ones that our organization does not have access to. So being able to fill in those gaps for them.
So for me, to raise awareness about how soil health, the holistic view of soil health can help reduce on-farm inputs and improve crop quality. So raise awareness.
Okay.
I would like to jump in.
Long-term end goal is to just sort of improve the general welfare of these people's lives. Like you can improve knowledge, but if they don't apply it, it is not functional.
Yeah, that's great. That's a real key. Yeah, so it's not, we don't want to just give them a bunch of information, but we want to give them information in a way that they have the best opportunity of utilizing it to make an improvement. Yeah, so we've already talked about some different methods of delivering information, but I think we'll talk in a little bit later about which methods are most effective. So I think a few key points to start off with. I think when you first arrive in country, or if you're giving a training to a group in country, I think it's really important to start off. It kind of goes to that credibility and trust. Explain to them what your role is in the project. Like, how is it you came to be there, and what's really your role? So they understand that, and I think you should set expectations, I think, appropriately. I mean, I think you shouldn't expect too much from yourself. You know, you should not, and I don't mean that in any disrespect, but it's okay to say you don't know if someone asks you something that's outside of your comfort zone in terms of what you feel like you know. You can always follow up if you want and say, you know, I'll look into the answer for you and I'll come back later. I'll relay that information to the organization. But I think, yeah, it's difficult. I think I'm still learning how to do this myself after many years in the field. You know, that you can't know everything, and especially when you go into a new situation, it's perfectly okay to say what you do know and what you don't know. And also, you know, don't promise more than you can actually deliver. It's okay that there's a limit. Like, for example, we were talking earlier about shipping supplies. I mean, you can't always do everything that the organization might ask of you, or the audience that you're talking to. All right, so I stole this material, or this Ask Me idea, from a colleague, Mark Bell, who gave this talk in previous Trellis seminars, and he loves acronyms. I actually hate acronyms, to be honest. I really hate them. But I think this is useful as a way to discuss the topic of extension. So Ask Me stands for audience, solutions, key message again, and this is why I hate acronyms, and evaluation. So we're going to talk about each of these in turn and talk about what we want to keep in mind as we're preparing our materials. So some of this you talked about during the workshop seminar, but you know, it really is important to think about the audience. You know, who is the audience? And as you mentioned, you know, is there going to be a language barrier? Is there a literacy barrier in terms of materials you're preparing? What's their level of education and training? What are their current practices, as you said? What's their level of sophistication in farming or post-harvest handling or processing, whatever you're focusing on. So you can kind of, and I think your organization is really going to be your key to understand all of this ahead of time so that you can prepare materials that are most appropriate for the audience. And then of course you need to know, you know, their economic level. You know, it's possible that some audiences may be already selling products and maybe they're already engaged in active growing and selling and they have an income stream and maybe some ability to invest in technologies that might be proposed. Maybe some other audiences are more subsistence farmers who for whom it's going to be really challenging. So we're kind of understanding what sort of things are within reach to the farmers, I think is important. And then, of course, understanding the crops that they're interested in, so you can target your examples to things that are more familiar. And it is possible that there might be more than one audience. I mean, there could be different groups. It can be challenging if you have different groups, like people at different levels in your audience at the same time. Like maybe you have some farmers who are going to be part of the training and they're already selling to the big city or to supermarkets, and then you have other farmers who are, you know, just selling to their neighbors or maybe a local market. You need to understand that, and maybe you're going to have to give some different examples that apply to different audiences that you have. So the next one is solutions. So, solutions are something that we all want to have, especially when we engage in an activity like this. I think all of you, like me, are interested in this because you want to be helpful and help people better their lives. So we want to solve the problems. But it's important to really try to get at what the real problem is. Because sometimes what looks like the problem initially might not be the actual cause. And in order to offer a solution, we really have to understand what the real problem is. So I have a couple examples to show you for that. So for example, maybe there's a lot of weeds in the field, and they're like, we have all these weeds. We applied an herbicide, but we still have all these weeds, and we don't understand what's going on. So it'd be important to ask a lot of questions, because maybe part of the issue is related to how the land was prepared when they first set up the field, or maybe when they brought in their planting material, they had a bunch of weedy plants or weed seeds that were in the cuttings or the planting material, and then that's why all these weeds came up. Or maybe the herbicide was put on at the wrong time, or maybe the weeds are resistant. So asking lots of questions, and not immediately jumping to, here's the answer. Even if you feel pretty comfortable with it, it's good to ask a few questions to kind of try to understand a little bit further. Another example, maybe their crops are very yellow, and so you think they're probably nitrogen deficient. So before you decide what you might recommend to help resolve that problem, what could be causing that? Well, it could be insufficient nitrogen in the fertilizer. I mean, maybe they're using an inorganic fertilizer and it doesn't have a lot of nitrogen. Maybe the soil is waterlogged and that's creating issues with nitrogen, or it's really poor soil. Or maybe it's the way they're applying the fertilizer. Or maybe they just can't afford fertilizer at all and they're not putting anything on. And if you start saying, oh, well, you need to put a high nitrogen fertilizer on, well, they might just nod their head and yeah, but if they can't afford it, then that might be the bottom line reason. And actually in Postharvest, we talk a lot about, although you probably won't see it in most of these places. I mean, you can have issues with disease on crops that the ultimate reason might be because those fruit were exposed to low temperatures that are inappropriate for that commodity. And so if it's chilled, it can then develop disease. But actually the main cause is the low temperature exposure, not the pathogen. So it's good to ask lots of questions. And they're looking at you as the expert, and so they're gonna be asking you to solve all kinds of problems. And again, it comes back to also, if you just, even though you might be going there as the soil fertility expert or what a soil quality expert, they're probably gonna ask you about post-harvest handling and other things. And if you just don't feel comfortable answering, just say, I don't know the answer to that, but I'd be happy to send an email and see if I can get a recommendation.
Once the crops are grown, it's somebody else's problem.
Yeah. Don't tell them that, though. But yeah.
The benefit of post-harvest is that they already planted, so by the time you get there, you're just like, oh, just roll with what you got.
You got what you got. Okay, so the next one is key messages, and this is a really important one. And as an extension specialist, I still struggle with this one because, so all of us are being trained as scientists or are scientists, right? And so we're all about the facts, and especially in our fields of study, the facts are just so interesting and there's so many and it goes to so many levels of detail. And how do you decide what to relay to the audience and what to leave out? And I think I've gotten a lot better over the years, but I think I still am a work in progress on this one. Is really thinking about what the audience needs to know and focusing on that and leaving a lot of the other stuff out. I mean, maybe they'll ask a question that'll allow you to then expand, but probably most of that stuff that you leave out won't even be necessary. So you really have to think it through, and you have to understand the audience. And so really working with your organization to understand what their current practices are, and what are some of the problems and issues, but also thinking about what are the most important messages. Less background information is usually what you want to. So with a scientific audience, and actually there was a really interesting graphic I meant to put in the PowerPoint. I didn't do it yet, but I saw this interesting graphic recently where they had it was like an inverted triangle, and it said for scientists, the top of the triangle is really wide, and that was, so it was like background information, and then the middle was evidence, and then at the bottom was takeaways, right? So you kind of start with the background. This is how we do a scientific talk or a paper, right? All the background, why it's important, blah, blah, blah. Then the evidence, then the take home. But for these audiences, really what we want to do is start with what is the take home message? We want to reduce the amount of background information. So the background should be very small and the evidence should be fairly small, and it really should focus on just the takeaway message. That's what we want to have most. And we definitely want to avoid jargon. We get very comfortable with certain ways of saying things, and also slang or colloquialisms, that only someone in the United States would understand, and abbreviations, or any overly complex terms. And it's tricky because you don't want to hit too low of a level in terms of the information you're providing. So you don't want to insult people by oversimplifying, and then they may not get enough out of it to do something with it, but you don't want to give them more than they need. So it's tricky, and it's something that you should spend some time thinking about and making decisions about. Yes.
Do you have an example, for example, let's say like a pest? I know that the farmers that I'm going to be working with have a problem with whiteflies, and I don't know if I should start by explaining the life cycle, or how to tell them apart, or I don't know exactly what I should be teaching them, or if it's just the practice of picking up the fruit, putting it away,
I mean, I would imagine that in a lot of cases, the life cycle is important in terms of deciding when to treat in different ways, possibly. So I guess I would say if knowing that is important for being able to control, then they need to know that and understand that. And then differentiating, if really identifying down to the specific pest, it's going to be critical for deciding what kind of control practice to use, then absolutely I would include that. A good example from my own work is, I can give a talk and I can show nice graphics of changes in what's a good example? Changes in quality of fruit with different temperatures or something, and then so I could run through all the examples in detail, but I could also just have 2 lines and say this temperature works best and you can get this much time, and then just have it be super clear. and simple, more simple. I think it depends on the audience. You know, a more sophisticated audience might want to see the actual data and would appreciate what it's showing. But if, I think for a lot of audiences in the developing world, especially if it's a farmer group and not a group of trainers, then they don't need that background stuff. They just want you to cut to the recommendation. So I think the question is, you have to ask, do they need to know for some reason this information? If they need to know, then you want to cover it. But if they don't need to know it, then you can leave it out. So less on the how, more of the what and so what. Okay, so why, so what, meaning, you know, why do you need to know this? All right, so what are we doing on time? We got until 2, right? All right, we'll try and do this kind of quickly. So this activity we're going to do is going to hopefully help you to understand what information is needed and not needed. So I want everyone to just take a few minutes and jot down instructions, step-by-step instructions for how to cook a scrambled egg. And then we'll see what we come up with. Everybody about done? How about you guys online? You all turned your videos off so I can't see what you're doing. Are you still there? Hello?
Russell's there.
I know Russell's there. There we go. There's somebody back.
Yes, we are here.
Back. Did you have a good nap? Okay. All right. So who wants to tell me what the first step should be?
That's one soon.
Yeah, let's have all of you guys on Zoom be the ones answering.
I think there's going to be some.
Jump in. Don't be afraid to talk over each other. I doubt it's going to happen.
Okay, I'm assuming they are able to get the egg out of the refrigerator.
Oh, do you want to do my volume again? Hold on, Russell.
Sure. Let me mute. Okay.
Okay, should work. Try Russell.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
And I'm loud enough?
Yep.
So can we assume that they've gotten the egg out of the refrigerator?
Not necessarily.
Like, where do you buy the egg? So I'm assuming that they got it out of the refrigerator. So okay, buy eggs. So crack an individual egg, but do not let the contents spill out of the shells. I remember doing this in like 3rd grade with making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and it was really tough.
Okay, we'll have a chance to critique and add and modify, so, okay?
Yeah, I'll let someone else go.
Okay. How about Sidrod? You want to jump in and tell us?
Okay. So I have to continue or I have to start it again?
Well, if you want, you can modify what's already there or continue on if you agree with it.
Okay, so the craft the individual egg. So mine is like first buy them, then crack them, and then beat them gently so they will be mixed. And then add the seasonings. Then take a pan, melt the oil or butter, what you want. Add the seasonings.
But so where we beat them gently, we should say that we're putting only the contents of the egg into the bowl, because they might put the shell in if they're just beating it all gently together, which we don't want them to do.
Yeah.
I wish we could.
We will beat them separately, and then we will add the oil contents into the pan. Then we'll gently heat them over the low heat. Then we add the seasoning into the oil, or like either in the egg. We can do in both ways, like either mixed in the eggs or the egg can add in the oil. So then we will add the egg into the pan, and then we will fry it, or like what we can do.
Okay. All right, let's have someone else jump in.
Yeah. Hello.
We can hear you.
Oh, so yeah, I think everything is ready. So you start cooking and pulling, lifting, folding like this to prepare this scrambling.
Scramble.
Continue cooking, actually.
What you do when it's so, how much heat, how much fire do we do?
Sorry, I can't hear.
How much heat do you put on the pan? How much fire?
The whole. I don't know how many eggs. I don't know. There is no indication. Yeah. So it may be dozen, 4, 1, 2, 3, maybe.
I think there should be gentle heating, not too much high, not too low.
And nobody said what kind of pan we're using.
Yeah, it's a standard size. So I think I'll go with 1 or 2. 2 eggs at a time. Yeah.
We are using the non-stick pan.
Yeah. But the size is varied, you know. Some are small, like 1 egg. Some are big, like 2 or 3 eggs is good for that.
So we need to place the pan onto an oven surface and start the heat. And for lightly oil the pan, we need to lightly oil the inside of the pan.
Yes.
And where so we already had beat the eggs up there, so let's just beat gently with seasoning at 4. Maybe. Because we don't need 8. 8 is just a repeat. Yeah, I know. We gotta for 8 we have to put the eggs in the pan.
And then what? Cook slowly maybe and stir?
Stir contents while heating. And then until they're firm but still moist.
Yeah. All right. I think that's pretty good. I think we got the point here that even something relatively simple to try and write really clear instructions, you know, is you have to really think about it and what's important to share and what's not important. So, hang on. There we go. Okay. All right. We're back. Okay. Let's go back to our PowerPoint.
Could they hear that?
So I'm not sure if you could hear me. I was saying the purpose of the exercise really is just to get us to think through, you know, when you're writing these training manuals, especially, or even, you know, informational posters, you do want to really think through all the different things you need to share. And of course, you know, you don't want to be ridiculous and insulting, but you do need to think about what people might not actually realize. If someone had never made scrambled eggs before, I mean, maybe they wouldn't realize that keeping the shell out is critically important. So, okay, so moving on. So we've already talked about lots of different ways to deliver information, and you guys have given a pretty long list. In fact, quite a few different ways that you're intending to deliver information to your organizations and their beneficiaries. So what do you think are some of the best ways to deliver information? Demonstrations. Interactions?
Yeah,
Can you
having
be-
the audience participate.
Audience, so participatory, like for in a workshop or something? Okay. Anybody else?
I think you need something that they can take home, so like worksheets or an actual document, not just presenting the information.
Use of more visuals.
How about you guys online? Everybody's so
Use of more
all muted again. There's such good edits in here. Jump in.
Use of
We can't hear you for some reason, even though is that because?
Are you muted or?
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. It's me.
use of visuals, pictures, videos, digital media.
Yeah, hang on. I haven't muted myself. There we go.
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
The use of more digital media such as videos, pictures.
Video and pictures.
Yeah. Animations, kind of stuff.
Very good. Yep. All right, we're getting a little short on time, so I think I'm going to cut to the chase and move to the next slide, which has kind of a. So actually, there have been this is kind of
I think you're still muted.
Sorry. All right, so okay. So I think those are actually really good. There have been some studies that have shown that some of the best ways that people learn information are through demonstrations. Also, one-on-one conversations with someone, with the recipient. One of the others, field demonstrations, but also radio. Radio is also a very effective way. I would imagine, video would also have a similar kind of takeaway. All right. So the last in the Ask Me, the E stands for evaluation. And of course, this can be a formal evaluation that you might do, but I think also, evaluating kind of as you go, especially if you're doing a training program, observing your audience, how engaged are they? Do they seem to be understanding the material? Follow up with some questions to gauge whether they're picking up what you're saying. If you're able to shift tactics, maybe add in a participatory thing. If everyone seems like they're falling asleep or they're not paying attention, then maybe you need to, if you're in the middle of a PowerPoint, maybe you need to try to figure out some way to engage the audience on a question or something to get them engaged. Ask your organization for feedback. After you'll probably be there for at least a week, maybe 2. So if you have some interactions with folks, maybe you can ask them, how do you think it went? Any suggestions for improvements? And then, of course, having an evaluation form if you have some kind of a formal training session so that you can get some real feedback in a real specific way. All right, so now we're going to look at a few examples. Let's see if I can move this out of the way. A few examples of materials and talk about some of the things we want to consider including, and then maybe critique some materials. So a fact sheet or a brochure, it's good if you can have a catchy title, doesn't hurt, or at least a really clear title. And then it's best if you have at least one photo or diagram, something to sort of grab people's attention and have them want to look at it. Generally, a piece of paper with lots of writing and words on it is a lot less appealing to someone than something that has some photos or diagrams, graphics on it. So it should generally, depending on the purpose of the brochure or fact sheet, usually is going to describe what the problem or situation is and why it's important, and then some kind of information on what people can, what information people need to have to act on that problem or what things they can do. The other thing to think about is if you create a fact sheet, it might potentially get copied in black and white. So you either want to consider that, whether it will translate to black and white okay, particularly if you use graphics, that can be an issue. But also, you might be able to find out if it's going to be printed in color or black and white. So anyway, here's a brochure, here's a fact sheet here. You can see how they did the logo block at the bottom. So they actually have 3 additional organizations, but they took up the whole bottom of this particular page to put all that on there. And then the little disclaimer at the bottom. A lot of photos, not too heavy on the text. Any comments on this particular fact sheet? Any suggestions for improvements or things you like about it?
I just realized that's my wife's boss on the top there.
Oh my goodness. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Just kind of funny.
That is funny.
I like their bullet points.
and just like pick out lists.
It breaks up the text too, because it's not just blocks and blocks of text. All right, well, I'm not gonna belabor that because we've got a few more slides to get through before we run out of time. So here's another brochure. So this one is a trifold brochure, and it actually has another side that I didn't include in the PowerPoint. And the comments on this one.
You could make it in bullet points so it would look more appealing. Maybe the information about the adult, the eggs, it can be put right next to the, or the small text right next to the picture, because it's written like on the life cycle.
The picture of the leaf damage is not very clear, and that's like a major takeaway is what are they actually doing? And tomato and leaf miners make pretty cool patterns, so you could definitely improve that photo.
Good comments. So the other thing is they put the logo on the bottom of every single panel, and I think that's a little overdone. I think you could put that just on the back, or maybe the front and the back would probably be sufficient. And then you'd have a little more room to spread other stuff out. Okay, so posters can be used for a variety of things. Of course, in the scientific community, we're used to doing a poster to sort of present our project and everything we've done, what the key takeaways are. But a poster might be used, it might be used to present information in a training, like you might want to, have things you can point to and refer to. But it could also be something that's going to get posted on the wall somewhere and left for a long time as a resource. And in that case, maybe it's going to have more information on it. But it should be something that you can see from standing back at least a little bit. You should be able to read it. It should be really clear. And if it's going to be an information poster, then you want it to be durable. Usually less text, more pictures and diagrams again with this. So this particular poster, well, I'll let you guys comments on this one. It's not really it's more like a project poster, so it doesn't have quite the same kind of purpose.
It doesn't seem very organized. You don't know, of course, you should start like on the side, right? So it seems like there's not like a flow of how the information is presented. The pictures are not very explanatory, maybe, or for example, there's like 3 pictures on the right, at the bottom. Like, well, from here I cannot see very well.
Yeah, you can't tell what it is. Yeah. And there's no caption.
Maybe use of boxes.
More pictures than words, because I was more interested. I looked at the diagram. I'm like, those things make sense, and it's nice to see sort of the application in the picture, because it's much better to look at it in picture than to try to describe how to build the solution.
Are they saying they can't hear?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Can you guys online hear the comments? Maybe I need to mute myself.
No, I think that's okay. Yes.
Okay. I think another thing on this one, the logo at the bottom could be a little bit smaller. It seems a bit overpowering, and it's taken up real estate that the poster maybe needed.
There's a good ratio of like pictures and words. It just needs to be a little bit more organized, but it's a good amount of pictures.
Yeah, it looks a little busy to me.
It's
my initial
personally
impression.
opposed to the bright blue text. A darker shade.
I agree with that.
What was the previous example? Was typing notes?
It's the fact sheet that you can get on the web.
is this thing?
Any ideas, guys? The little arrows went away. Everything went
Did you click
away.
on the screen?
Oh, interesting. Thank you. Okay, here's a another poster. So comments.
The diagram. It clearly shows what it is, but the text is.
I personally like it. Maybe the title is not like something more catchy would be nice. And maybe a little bit of color.
The categories need to be more clear as you move through the text. Bold or
So using bold on the categories and maybe using those numbers a little more effectively to really separate the text a bit. Yeah, and again, the one logo is a little bit big, and I might put those at the bottom so that the title can be at the top. Okay. All right, so here's another one. This is a, I'm not sure if it was a fact sheet or a poster. I guess it could be both. Looks more like a fact sheet showing nutrition deficiency symptoms.
I have a question. So this is the first one that someone identified their name. Is it a practice for extension materials to say, to take credit for you as a creator, or should it have more, I guess, longevity without being attached to a person?
That's a good question. So the question was about whether you should put your name on there. I mean, I think for something, you know, if it's like an information poster or a fact sheet or something like that, generally we don't put our name on there. If it's a training manual or I'm looking for other examples. Your PowerPoint, of course, you can put your name. People might want to contact you, but most of the times not. You might include something like at the bottom, prepared by, or for further information, contact, something like that. Yeah. My only question on this one, I wasn't sure what the red and the white letters meant, and I still don't know.
Yeah, this one definitely won't work not in color, obviously. But also captions would be really beneficial because for some nutrient deficiencies, they're only apparent in certain parts of the plant. So showing the leaf doesn't really help out.
You need to know where that leaf is. Okay, very good. All right, so PowerPoints. So as with most of these things that we've talked about, that where it's really visual and people are taking the information, and you don't want too much text. Bullet points are very helpful. I think it's good not to crowd your individual slides too much. If it's too much, then divide it into more than one slide. Make sure the text and the graphics are large enough. You might get some idea. You could try and get an idea from your host how far away the audience might be, but I think it's better to just plan that they could be far away or have a hard time seeing it. I have noticed, maybe it's always been the case, but especially as I get older, a lot of young people put really small stuff in PowerPoints and then think everybody can read it. And maybe the younger people can read it, but I know I can't. So especially if you're like copying in graphics and things, it's better not to copy in graphics. If you can recreate them, that's better because generally the quality is much better. But if you have to copy something, you want to make sure that you can blow it up to a big size. I think it's always nice to have some kind of photo on most of your slides or something to just sort of break it up a little, because a lot of text can just be difficult for the audience. you want your slides to be interesting without being busy. So like here, instead of just using all black, I added a different color title just to give it a little bit more interest. And I put this picture of a PowerPoint slide on there just to make it more interesting to look at. I think animation can be helpful, but you can definitely overdo it in terms of the animation and also different colors. And then most importantly, you want to have really clear messages and key points. So this is an example. I have a couple slides of a PowerPoint that someone made. So one thing that I noticed right away with this is that the text is not very well centered on the slide. So it's really up at the top edge. And it seems as if they're not using the templates in the PowerPoint. They're creating their own text boxes, which can lead to some challenges. So, I mean, this particular slide's not particularly bad. A little heavy on text in the middle one, but not too bad. Again, a little crowded at the top, but not, you know, maybe could be a little more interesting, but it's not bad. I didn't realize. Okay, so this is an animated. So there's some photos and diagrams. So I think, you know, a little bit of humor can be nice. Certainly diagrams and photos are helpful. The text is a little bit small in the middle of it, so probably that could be a little bit bigger. And then this one, again, is really crowded up at the top. I like the fact that they highlighted some key points in bold. I think that that's to be really helpful to kind of focus the audience, and the bulleting is good. Any other comments on that real quick from you guys?
I would underline free cooling, and then you can see free cooling, oh, the important components.
Yeah, actually, it could have a title called pre-cooling on the slide would be better. Yeah. I think it's good to use the templates that PowerPoint offers with, you know, pick the format you want, but choose it from the slide layouts, and then you'll end up getting better spacing. Okay, so of course videos are something that we can find to be very effective. And maybe you all have seen this already in class. Should have queued this up already. Let's see. Videos are a really good way to get across information, and audiences really enjoy them. So this is a video on this time-lapse video on how to build a solar dryer. Maybe you've seen it already. And actually, we have a much more detailed version of this on how to build a solar dryer. But anyway, videos can be fun, and generally audiences like them. Now, what I wanted to point out is that you can make a video, and I think nowadays you've got so many tools for making videos, but there are also lots of videos already made that you could incorporate in your training. So this is Diane Barrett's website. She retired from the Department of Food Science almost 2 years ago. But she has this website still with all kinds of information, and there's a bunch of fruit and vegetable videos that are all on YouTube. So like how to use a color chart, how to use a refractometer, how to use temperature and relative humidity. So I don't have time to show them to you now, unfortunately, but I encourage you to take a look at those. Also on the Postharvest Center website, there are a number of links to videos, and I'll show you that site in just a minute. So, obviously you want the information you're extending to potentially be adopted. It's not always the case. I mean, a lot of people for many, many years have been extending information, and there's a variety of reasons why things don't get adopted. Maybe it's too expensive, people can't afford it. It could be social or cultural reasons why it doesn't work. People may be afraid of risk or resistant to change. Maybe the audience you're talking to isn't going to really be the one to benefit from it. Are they the one that are going to make more money or have more food, or is somebody else going to benefit? Or maybe the technology is not reliable, or maybe they wouldn't be able to repair it. So these are all things to keep in mind as you think about what kind of things you want to recommend. All right, so the key to successful extension is to think about what's the value add. Does the solution show clear benefit to the audience? What information does the audience need to make a change? And then finally, so these are, I apologize to all of you at University of Hawaii, North Carolina State, and University of Florida. I'm sure there are tons of great references and resources there, but these are some that came top to mind to me that I was aware of. The Horticulture Innovation Lab has a lot of good information, and actually we're going to be launching a new website next month that's more information centric, and so there should be some great resources there. The Postharvest Center, as I mentioned, they have a lot of links to YouTube videos that are made by all sorts of organizations about how to do different things, and they also have an app, a Produce Fact app that has temperatures and post-harvest issues with any kind of fruit or vegetable, and it's a free download on Apple or Android. So it can make you feel really smart, because all you got to do is pull out your phone and push the button, and as long as you have an internet connection, you can answer really basic questions right off the top of your head. For production, we have the Vegetable Research and Information Center and the Fruit and Nut Research and Information Center. There's the IPM Pest Management site, has a lot of good resources on diseases and insects, and then these two are related to food safety. So again, actually, if the students at the University of Florida, at Hawaii, and North Carolina State want to share some resources with the group, that would be great as well. And definitely make yourself available, make these resources available to you, and before you go, I think they can be really helpful.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about, in your experience, the success with using video in a developing country setting, in terms of is there access to project videos or?
Yeah, I mean, it's so, well, if you're doing a PowerPoint, of course, you're projecting something. Yeah. The nice thing is that nowadays with all these tablets and things, I mean, if you're in a small setting, you can pull something up and, with a small group of people, you can show a video that way, or a PowerPoint if it's short. But yeah, and even on cell phones, you can look at things together, but it's definitely not going to work in a lot of settings. And so you have to be really clear about what the facilities are going to be like and where you're going to be doing your trainings. All right, that was my last slide. So any quick questions? We're a little over time, so I apologize for that, not leaving more time. About our on-screen audience. I can't see. Get back to. You guys good? Everybody good? Any questions? Okay. Any questions? No questions? Okay, they're all shaking their heads. Anybody here have any questions? Okay, all right, well, thank you very much. I enjoyed getting to know all of you better. Good luck with your trellis projects and the rest of the quarter here. And I'll look forward to hearing all your success stories.
Thanks, Beth. Thank you.
Thank you.